Hello, welcome to week 5 of our course. I look forward to working with you during this week. During week 5, we will be exploring the increasing diversity of the Latino population of the United States. As many of you know, the Latino population of the United States is not monolithic. Latino is a very broad term that refers to people of many different cultures from many different nations. For much of American history, the largest Latino population group in the US were Mexican Americans. However, this begins to change starting in 1965. You see an increasingly diverse Latino population of the United States emerging. Why does this shift take place? It's largely due to revisions made to U.S. immigration law. In 1924, the National Origins Act was established. The National Origins Act was a very discriminatory immigration policy. It favored immigrants from Europe. Almost all of the slots for immigrants to the US were reserved for individuals coming really from Northern and Western Europe, from the British Isles, Germany, etc. Intentionally, the National Origins Act largely excluded immigrants from Latin America, Asia, and Africa from entering the United States. Now, this did not prevent Mexicans from immigrating to the United States simply by crossing the southern border as undocumented immigrants. So, for much of American history, when you looked at the Latino population of the United States, it was disproportionately Mexican American, because Mexican Americans could easily cross the border and enter the U.S. in spite of the restrictive and discriminatory immigration laws that were in effect. This begins to change in time. One shift occurs after the communist revolution takes place in Cuba. In the 1950s, a communist revolution takes place in Cuba, and Fidel Castro gains power. A segment of the Cuban population faced oppression as a result of this revolution, and a number of Cubans sought to leave Cuba and to enter the United States. At this point, the United States embraced a fairly open immigration policy for Cubans seeking entry to the U.S. This is part of sort of a Cold War policy that anyone arriving on land in the United States from Cuba would be regarded as a political refugee and would be allowed to stay in the United States. So you saw, starting in the 50s, the tremendous growth of the Cuban American population, particularly in Florida, but also in other parts of the country as well. A bigger change takes place in 1965. In 1965, American immigration law is radically changed for the better. The old discriminatory policy dating back to 1924 is overturned. And immigration from Latin America, Africa, and Asia is opened. So at this point, you see a significant increase in immigrants from Central America, the Caribbean, entering the United States. And this leads to a much more diverse Latino population in the United States. So no longer is the Latino population predominantly Mexican American. So you see that shift taking place to an increasingly diverse Latino population emerging in the U.S. We'll also look at the status of Puerto Rico as a U.S. territory. The United States gained possession of Puerto Rico through the Spanish-American War in 1898, and Puerto Rico is a territory of the U.S., and Puerto Ricans may enter the United States as citizens of the United States. And you see a sizable Puerto Rican population emerge in the United States in the 20th century and 21st century. One of the largest, geographically, New York City is a good example of a region that has a large Puerto Rican population. So I look forward to working with you during this week. I hope that you'll find it interesting,